Well, it has been 3 whole years since we have purchased the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E right behind me. And we're going to talk about kind of our whole experience with the car, owning it for 3 years, the pros, the cons, the services, the things we like, the things we dislike about it. Some of the things I saw different between this one and the 2024 that I recently had possession of, and maybe some of the things that are coming in the 2025 and whether or not it's worth the upgrade. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. So Paul here with another episode of Tech Motoring. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about our 3 years experience with this car behind me, which is our 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E. It is the rear-wheel drive, standard battery, premium trim. So just one up from the bottom. With the Ford Copilot 360 and Blue Cruise, hands-free, all that stuff is in it. Pretty much what I would suspect is probably one of the nicest trims that you can get. Is just a premium one, unless you want to go up to like the GT or GT Performance, which I guess they're not doing the GT Performance now. But yeah, so this is our 3-year-old now Ford Mustang Mach-E. Actually, it's a little more than 3 years. We're actually shooting this kind of late in February because we actually got the car in January of 22. So January of 25 would be 3 years. But since the car was in for service for 35 days from December into January, they kind of postponed this video out a couple weeks. And we finally got some nice weather too, because we were dealing with some snow and stuff here at the beach, which was, we haven't seen that in probably 10 years or more. So yeah, so we postponed this video a little bit to kind of get some last minute things done with the car. The warranty is now up, or at least the standard 3-year 36,000 mile warranty is up. And the only thing we have left on the car would be the 8-year 100,000 mile warranty on the battery, I suppose. And so, what are our thoughts about all that stuff? We're going to kind of do that all in the later part of this video. But let's just talk about the car overall. So once again, this is a 2021. So first year of the Mustang Mach-E, though this was a late build. It's kind of a late build. I think it was November of 21 that this car was built. I didn't get it till January of 22, so it's definitely a later model 21. And there were some things that we got on this car that they later took away, and some other things that the earlier 21s didn't have, which we'll show you a little bit. Like in the front area, we don't have that like partition thing. Ours was wide open because I guess we had the proper escape hatch functionality when the car came out, whereas earlier 2021s didn't have that. Just some weird things that Ford was going through trying to ramp up production of the Mach-E. And then they made some changes in the 22 and the 23 and the 24, which we just recently had a 2024. While this was in for service, we got to experience a 2024 Mach-E. Exact same car, same color and everything, rear-wheel drive, standard battery. That was with the LFP battery. This is the NMC chemistry battery, which is what they put on in the earlier Mach-E's. And so really the question that I had initially was, when I got the 24 to borrow for a few weeks, was whether or not I would see like a potential upgrade between the 21 and the 24. And you could take a look at the video. I do a comparison video, but honestly, there really is no differences that I see that are worth the upgrade from a 21 to 24. And so, if you're watching this video trying to figure out, like, should I buy a 21, a 22, 23, 24, honestly, if you're going to look at buying a new Mustang Mach-E, I would wait till the new one comes out in 25. You'll get the heat pump. You'll get a lot of other features about it. If you're looking for a used one, I think I would try to look for a 21 and be in all honesty. Unless you're specifically looking for one that has the LFP battery in it, which arguably is a little bit better because it does charge better than this NMC battery. But overall, I think the 21 is probably kind of got the sweet spot. We have a lot of features in this car that the later ones don't have. And so we'll kind of show you some of those features right off the bat. So for instance, if you come around to the back of the vehicle here, one of the things that we got on this particular year that a lot of the other ones, I think they ended up taking it out during the chip shortage or whatever the case may be, was, the kick to open rear tailgate, which, granted, this might not be a big deal for a lot of people, But that was kind of something that was really interesting. We had our 2024 for a few weeks and it did not have that feature. And honestly, after having this for a few years, I've actually realized how nice it is to have this. You know, when you're walking to the car, your hands are full, you just want to, you know, open up the back tailgate real quick, and having that feature is kind of one of the nice things for that. So I do enjoy having that feature. And then one of the other things we noticed on the 2024 is the lack of the plunger for the front door. So for instance, you know, when you hit the button, the door pops out that couple inches like that. Well, they don't have that little plunger, which is located right here. They don't have this on the later Mach-E's, the 2024 specifically. Not sure about the 22s or 23s, but that was one of those things that not a big deal, but you know, I kind of like the presenting door when you push on the button there. So it's just one of those things that I kind of thought, well, the 2021 kind of did things. They kind of overdid it in the 21, in my opinion. I think they kind of started cheaping out and started pulling some costs out of the later ones to kind of lower the price of the Mach-E. And they successfully did so. The Mach-E is now cheaper now than it was when I bought my car, which is something that you don't see very often from legacy automakers. A lot of times they are not very good at knowing how to lower the price of a car. And I think we could thank one brand in particular for that, which is Tesla. I think they did a pretty good job of, you know, showing the market of, you know, if you do it correctly, if you build it properly, you can build a car cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, as opposed to getting it more expensive every single year. And, you know, I think we have a lot to thank to them. But let's go over a quick tour of the car real quick. I'll show you kind of parts of the vehicle that we like and we dislike certain areas, and we'll kind of go from there. So the back of the Mach-E has a pretty decent storage area. We're happy with this. You know, previous to this car, we actually replaced a Mazda CX-5, which was a very awesome car. Fantastic car. We drove that car all over the place. And this car is definitely a little smaller than that from a storage standpoint in the back. However, you do gain a frunk in this car, and you do get a little bit of this underfloor storage. Now, as you can see, it's not super deep. We just have some basic stuff in here, like our you know, shopping bags, you know, our EVSE, our, you know, extra cables if we need them, adapters. Then that's pretty much what you get back here. And that's with this floor, which this floor, of course, can be, you know, also raised as well. This is the floor here. I have a floor mat back here. But, you know, this can actually be raised, or is actually, this might be in the highest set right now, but let's see. Yeah, so you could actually put this a little lower as well if you wanted to, and put it flat to the floor. Or like the way I have it right now is I have it up on these little nubs there, so this way we keep the floor up a little higher. Gives us a little bit more cargo space below. It's a little bit of a cheap floor. It kind of barely does the thing, but it does the trick for keeping some storage below. I just realized I put this underneath, so we could go ahead and throw this back up real quick. This is just one of those, what's that?
Privacy.
Just one of those privacy things, yeah. There we go, we'll put that back. This thing gets in the way a lot of times, so that's why I pull it out. But yeah, if you have anything taller than, like, you know, a small box, this thing ends up catching it and then knocking itself off, and it gets in the way. But for certain things, it could be nice if you're on a road trip and you're doing your privacy thing. You know, put your stuff in the back, and at least you know nobody's going to look in on that stuff. One of the other things I noticed in the later models, we don't have the extra button up here. So here we have this extra button for, you know, setting the tailgate to its proper height. So you can set this to whatever height you want. And then also you could close it and from that button as well, as opposed to this button, which is the one you use externally from the car. They got rid of this button, and then you just use this one to do all the functions, which, you know, makes sense in my opinion. But we have that button there. Of course, it's the full electronic open and close hatch. As you can see, does a pretty good job of just opening and closing very smoothly. It doesn't really do any real jostling movements. It's actually been pretty smooth the last 3 years we've had it, unlike our side view mirrors, which we'll talk about here. So as you may know, the Mach-E has electronic side mirrors, which will, you know, automatically go in and go out based on if you lock the car. There we go. And then of course, if you unlock the car, if you hit the button, or if you just hit the unlock button on your key, the mirrors fold back out. Well, we just had an issue with this, which is why it was in the shop for 35 days, to get these replaced. So they actually replaced the entire mirror assemblies on this car, because around year 2, somewhere between 1.5 years to 2 years, I started noticing that this mirror was starting to act up. And because of that, I was like, all right, I'm gonna hold off a little bit and I'm not gonna bother with it yet. I wanna see what happens. And probably by 2.5 year mark of owning this car, this mirror got worse and that mirror started acting up on the passenger side. And so that's why we brought it in December to get the mirrors replaced. I waited till the end of the warranty to bring the mirrors in, or bring the car in to get the mirrors replaced. I didn't expect it to take over a month for that work to be done. So yeah, so that was an interesting, experience we had there. Let's just move up to the back seat here. We could kind of talk about the back seat. I currently have seat covers on the car, so we don't have the, the original seats being worn every single day. We actually do have some seat covers on here, which have been pretty nice. Don't mind the car is a little dirty right now. We didn't get a chance to clean up the interior, but sitting in the back seat, it's a pretty comfortable. I've been, I think, back here a couple times, and it's been pretty good. And we actually took this to Florida with our friends who were pretty tall. I think Kevin's over 6 foot, 6'1" maybe. And he sat in the front, and then his wife, which is, I don't know, 5'10", something like that. She's pretty tall. She sat in the back seat, and she was perfectly fine. But she had to sit behind me because I'm short, and she had more space. She couldn't sit behind Kevin because there just wasn't enough space. So plenty of space as long as you're, I would say, 6 foot and under, for the back seat. If you're going to sit behind somebody who's 6 foot, I wouldn't put somebody who's 6 foot behind them. I think you're going to be just a little tight with the seat. As you can see, I'm 5'7", so I'm basically sitting behind myself. I have plenty of space. The second you put somebody that's like an extra 3 or 4 inches taller than me in the front seat, this will shrink down quite a bit. And then of course you're going to have that issue of whoever's in the back seat. If they're tall, they're going to have that issue as well. So yeah, that's the one thing to think about with this. And we didn't really think about that until we had somebody who was tall sitting in the back seat. Our whole family is short. So, so we never thought about that. Though your dad's been in the back seat.
Yeah.
My wife's behind the camera. She's the one that's filming for us today. And your dad's never really complained about the back seat. The height, I think, is fine. Yeah. It's just the leg room is just a little bit shallow for taller people. Yeah. So that's the only thing I would say for the back seat, just to be a little cognizant of, is if you're going to put somebody tall in the back seat, make sure they're behind the shorter person in the front, or put them behind the passenger, and the passenger can maybe scooch up a little bit, however that works. But the back seat's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not luxurious, but at least it's pretty decent space. Other than your vents in the back seat, you just get a couple USB ports. Now this one has a USB-A and a USB-C. I noticed that in the later models, Ford started putting on 2 USB-C ports in the back, and in the front, there's a USB-A and a USB-C. Now the 2025 might just go USB-C all out, but I noticed that they started moving from the USB-A and the C combo in the front and back to the USB-Cs, 2 USB-Cs in the back on their cars. So I think it's a welcome addition. I always like to see at least one USB-A port in a car, just in case. But having the extra USB-Cs is definitely a welcomed addition as well. We'll move up to the front seat here. You can kind of take a look at the front seat. Once again, this is set for me. I'm 5'7", so I'm not very tall, but it's very comfortable for the driving. The steering wheel, I think, is probably one of the most comfortable steering wheels I've ever used in a car. It's just the right size. It's very comfortable. It's nice leather wrapped steering wheel. Just very nice to be here. Right behind the steering wheel, you do have your infrared eye tracking, or I guess it's more face tracking. I'm not really sure. I think it's actually just eye tracking. This is what controls your Blue Cruise, hands-free, and actually just regular Blue Cruise when you're driving. So if you're not paying attention to the road, this is what looks at you and sees you. Unfortunately, a lot of times if you put your hand on the top of the wheel, you end up blocking that sensor, and therefore you end up having the issue of it yelling at you saying, please pay attention to the road, pay attention to the road. Yeah, watch the road. I think it says watch the road. And so, that was probably not a great placement for it, but they just did that. I know on the F-150s, I think they moved them to up on the dashboard. So they're a little bit more, well, less chance of them being blocked, I guess I should say. And so, yeah, that was an okay idea, but definitely not a great idea having it there right behind the steering wheel, because you definitely just block it. Other than that, you know, we have our nice big screen here in the center, vertical. That hasn't changed on the newer ones, which is good to see. They got the screen behind the steering wheel, which is really nice. So this way you have your, you know, your speed. You even have some navigation there, your state of charge. Everything is right there. In fact, let me start this up, and you can see the animation start up. Really, really nice. So you can see your percentage, your mileage left. You can see, you know, your, let's turn the wheel here, your Prindle, as they call it. So you can see your park, reverse, neutral, drive. Our mileage, which you can see we're at 22,000 miles, which I know is not a lot. So owning this car for 3 years, we didn't put a lot of miles on this car after the first year and a half, I would say, because we had this car for about a year. We put over 10,000 miles on this car in the first year. And then I got my Tesla, which then we started road tripping that occasionally, which then, you know, stopped us from taking this on every road trip. And then last year we ended up getting the Fiat, which was now became our runaround town car. So then we drive the Fiat on the weekends and stuff. So, you know, this car doesn't see that much driving unless it's a road trip. And, you know, my wife drives it back and forth to work every day, but that's a very short commute. So it doesn't really, you know, build up too much mileage over time. So we definitely kept the mileage low on this car after 3 years, but that first year we really packed them on, really got them on there, and yeah, and enjoyed every bit of it too, because it was really great road tripping this car, and it still is. It honestly really is. Even with the Supercharger network now, it's definitely become much more comfortable to drive this car because of that. And we can talk about that actually in a little bit. So road tripping this car, we have taken this car all the way from here in Myrtle Beach, which is where we live in South Carolina. We've driven this down to Florida multiple times. We've been up to Virginia multiple times. We've been up to New Jersey once in the middle of winter time. And we even drove us out to Tennessee. That's right. So we've driven this car quite a bit up and down the Eastern Coast, and went all the way out to Tennessee once. And honestly, other than, you know, the charging infrastructure being pretty abysmal, it's been a great experience road tripping this car. It's comfortable. The range is good, even with the standard battery, because EPA range on this model 2021 was 230 miles. And I have proven pretty much that doing, you know, 70 miles an hour on a highway, you can easily do 200 miles in between stops if you absolutely wanted to. And so the EPA rated on this car is actually probably a lot lower than it could be. They probably could have EPA rated this for like 250 with a mixed highway city driving. We got about 230 miles when we drove from here going to Florida on our first leg of the trip.
We made it
all the way to yeah, Pooler, Georgia, which is a little less than 230 miles, and we still had like 15% battery or something like that. Like, we did really well, and that was a mix of, you know, city and highway, slow driving and some highway driving. So the distance of this car, even with the small battery, is fantastic. Do I wish I got the bigger battery? I think it was $5,000 more to get the bigger battery, and it's like an extra 70 miles of range. We never needed it, but there was those occasional times when you're doing those long road trips where you wouldn't mind having the extra 50 or 60 miles of range on the highway, so this way you can go just a little bit further. You might be able to cut out one more stop, you know, on like maybe a 3-stop, you know, road trip. You might be able to do it in 2 stops instead of those 3. So there are some times I wish I got the bigger battery, but honestly, it wasn't very necessary, and this has been doing very well for us, considering. In fact, I make the statement a lot because our other car, which is a Tesla Model 3 Performance, which is EPA rated at like 300 miles, probably does very similar range on the highway versus this, which is pretty crazy to think. I think they're within 20 miles of each other. You know, this might do 240, that might do 260, you know, on the highway. And it's just crazy to think that, you know, the EPA range can be so far off, you know, based on the vehicle and what's reported to the EPA. But really nice. We love the interior of the car. It's very comfortable. Once again, we have seat covers on the front seats as well. But the interior is very nicely done. The gear selector down here on the center console, that is being moved now. That's going to be up as a stock on the steering wheel in 2025 during the refresh. So that's going to be a little interesting for them to move that.
Like the dial on the...
Yeah, the dial's kind of nice. I like the dial too. In fact, a lot of Ford products have the dial. It's not even just this one. It's some other products have that dial, and it looks like they're going to be getting rid of that. I think they just wanted to put some extra space down there or something. I don't know. But the 2025 is looking really cool. I'm really excited to see the 25. I'm hoping to actually be able to drive one pretty quickly after they come out. That's kind of my hopes, to see what that is different between this one and that one after about 5 years. Overall, I think it's been a great car. We'll look at the frunk real quick, actually. So I made mention before that the frunk was a little different on this model. They actually put the, as you can see here, they actually didn't have any of the dividers in this year. This is actually just wide open frunk, which is awesome because this is really cool for road trips. When we road trip this car, I mean, we stacked a lot of stuff into this frunk. It's so deep and it's really nice. You can just put as much stuff in here as you possibly want and just load it down. It's locked. This way it's secure. You don't have to worry about it so much. And it definitely is worth having a frunk in the car. I know a lot of people say, I'll never use the frunk. The frunk's useless. But honestly, on long road trips, the frunk is just, you have to have it, really. Because, I mean, we've loaded this car up all the way from front to tail, and I mean, it was really nice to have that extra luggage ability in the front. Of course, closing it takes a little bit of pushing, but yeah, I mean, that was a big thing too, is that the new frunks in the 2025 are going to be a little shorter because they have to put the heat pump in there now, so the heat pump's going to be taking up a little bit of the space under the hood. So the frunks are going to be shrinking a little bit in the 2025 model. Trying to think what else we could talk about with the car. Some of the things, the experiences we had with, I guess, service. So as I mentioned before, the mirrors were one of the things that we had to get service on. Actually, the frunk, the tub of the frunk, actually, we got replaced. I didn't even expect the frunk to get replaced, but actually, let me pop that one more time. So when I bought the car, this plastic piece right here had been lifted up in the middle here. And you can't lift it up. It's not very easy to lift up. You really have to pry on this thing to bring this plastic piece up. This whole tub has been redesigned in the later model Mach-E's. This is kind of the old style tub. And what happened was, when I bought the car, this was pried up a little bit. And I didn't say anything about it at first. I kind of just left it the way it was. But eventually, when I was bringing it in for another service, I mentioned it. I said, hey, listen, this plastic piece has been up since I bought the car. I'm like, is there any way that you can just like either, fit it back down or replace this plastic trim piece? And, they're like, okay, we'll look into it. Well, it turns out they had to replace the entire trunk, or the entire tub assembly underneath the hood to fix that trim piece there. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It took them like, I think it was like over a week, maybe 2 weeks to do the whole thing. But like, they had to replace this entire tub assembly in the car. I couldn't believe they went through all that trouble just for what was basically just a plastic trim piece right here. You think you would just be able to pop off the old one and snap a new one down, but clearly it was more complicated than that. So that was one of the services that we brought it in for, and I think that was part of my 10,000 mile service. And I guess we'll start getting into some of the cons of owning this car. And it's more or less me specifically, because we've brought this car in for service multiple times to our local Ford dealership, the dealership that we actually bought the car from. And I have had sub-satisfactory experience with that. I really did not have good service with it the last time with the mirrors. Like I said, 35 days of waiting for them to fix the side view mirrors. And the one time they kind of gave me a little bit of an attitude about, that piece, that trim piece that was there, because they thought I broke it. And I was like, no, I didn't break it. I'm like, it was like that when I bought the car. Like, I just would like you guys to fix that. And they were kind of like, well, stop, tinkering with stuff. And I was just like, And so just the communication and the professionalism that I had, my personal experience has been pretty subpar when it comes to that situation with owning this car. Now I've heard other people that own Mach-E's and have brought them in for service and have had fantastic experiences, and just the dealerships are knowledgeable about electric vehicles. They're willing to kind of understand what the difference is between servicing an electric car versus a gas car, and they're willing to like communicate that with the person, the customer bringing the car in, and that means a lot from, you know, someone in my sake, where I'm a car enthusiast. I like my car and I like to keep it in good shape and make sure that it's being taken well care of. And then when you kind of get that feeling that they're just not caring about you or the car or what needs to be done, or there's this lack of communication, I think that is really kind of it hurts my experience owning this Ford product now because of those experiences. And I could have taken it to another Ford dealership. I could have driven the extra, 15, 20 miles and gone to a different Ford dealership. But I went to the dealership that I bought this car at, and I went to the dealership that, I've known those people for quite a few years, because I've bought a couple cars from them. I've had family members buy cars from them. And yet, the experience is always just not great. And so that might make me double think about buying a product from them in the future. Might be something I look into a different dealership. But on that note, that's not necessarily a problem with the car, it's just a problem with the experience of owning this car. And so, and I'm open to hearing what everybody else has to say. Throw down in the comments below if you had good or bad experiences with owning your Ford product or whatever, and let me know what your experience has been. But mine just hasn't been that great whatsoever. It is what it is, but I just wish their service could be a little bit better. What else should we talk about? I was going to switch the camera over to the person who daily drives the car and see what she has to say about it. All right, so now we have the professional here. And, after I bought my Tesla about a year after owning the Mach-E, my wife is the one that ended up driving this as her daily driver.
Hi.
Hi. So what has your experience been driving this car pretty much on a daily basis for work and for whatever other purposes?
It's been very comfortable. I love the ride. It's smooth. I've gotten a lot of compliments on the body style and the way it looks, and they're really surprised that it's a Mustang and that it's a electric. They're pretty impressed.
Yeah, a lot of people see this car and they say, oh, that's really cool. So is that a hybrid?
Yes.
And then you go, no, it's electric. And they say, you mean like all electric? Yes. And then you're like, oh, well, yeah. And they're like, oh, I didn't know they made those. And so a lot of people, especially when we first bought them, they either saw the car and said, oh, that's not a real Mustang, or they would be like, wait, that's actually electric?
Yeah.
And so we definitely saw a lot of confusion 3 years ago when we first bought the car. But what do you think about owning it, or what do you think about like road tripping? When we go on road trips with the car, how do you feel about being a passenger and, the comfortability level when we drive it all over the place?
The seats are comfortable. You got decent leg room and everything. I can stretch out. I can relax. When it comes to charging and things, it's not too bad. Navigation is okay, could be better.
Yeah, actually, we're going to dive into that a little bit as well, because I do want to talk about the software and charging and some of the main parts, the pain points of that as well.
But it's very comfortable driving. The trips that we've taken to Tennessee and New Jersey, it's very comfortable, and I'm glad we have the Mach-E to ride in and drive to different areas. I think my one experience is when we took it on the ferry. That was a fun experience.
Oh, yes, the ferry back from the Outer Banks. Mach-E on a boat. Yeah, that was a pretty fun day, actually, when we drove this all the way from the Outer Banks all the way home on a single charge. That was pretty cool. And we took it on 2 boats.
Yes.
Which was really, really awesome. Cool.
So the experience of road tripping is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I can't agree more with that. I think, road tripping, this car is actually really comfortable, really nice and really fun. Awesome. Anything else you want to add to that?
I think I have to agree with you when it comes to the software and charging and everything. I think with the navigation, finding charging in the area, it kind of puts us at different spots, and it's not as good as Tesla experience, but I think it's decent.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's decent. I think it's okay. I don't think it's fantastic, especially with Tesla Supercharger access now, which, I'll get into more of that during that part of the video here. But anything else you want to add to your experience owning this car?
I love it. I
There
don't
you
want
go.
to give it up. So everybody's like, "Oh, I'll take it when you're done." I was like, "I'm not going to be done."
We've had a couple people tell us to not sell the car to anybody else, so we'll see about how that works in the future. All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so now that you heard from the actual professional here, you can listen to me again for a few minutes. So you brought up a couple of good points, which is the software, the navigation, and the charging of the vehicle. So let's talk about that first. So when we first bought the car, we road tripped it, we used the built-in navigation, and it worked. It works very well. I don't think there isn't too many negatives about the navigation. It's really good. You put in a destination, it tells you need to stop here, you need to stop here. It tells you for how long you need to stop for. It tells you what you're going to be there to what percent, what you're going to get there with and what you're going to stay there until, and then it tells you the next stop and so on and so forth. And for that, I think the Mach-E kind of shines from its software standpoint. I think what's happened in the next 3 years of ownership is that the software didn't get any better. And that, I think, is one of my biggest pain points. Being a Tesla owner and seeing the way that they support the vehicles, they support the software, they support the infrastructure as well, the charging infrastructure, that way that they incorporate all that into their software is just amazing. And seeing the way that Ford has struggled owning this car for the past 3 years has been, it's been a little upsetting, to be honest with you, because I really thought Ford was gonna really take on the EV thing and move forward with it. And I really feel like they've just become stagnant. And now GM has come in and completely wiped the floor with them in this past 6 months, 8 months, whatever it's been. And so I kind of feel a little upset about that. And I'll kind of go a little further on that. So let's finish talking about road tripping. So like I said before, we road tripped this car a lot. Out of the 22,000 miles that are on this car, I bet you close to 16 or 17,000 of those is just road tripping. Because like I said, when we have this car at home, it's a short trip for work for my wife, and we don't really drive it around so much. It's mostly, we take the Fiat if we need to go anywhere around town or, whatever the case may be. But most of the miles on this car are road trip miles. And it's been good, but I think the other pain point I've had is that we got access to Tesla Superchargers, and we got our free adapter, which was very nice. I'm glad Ford did that. But then they never incorporated the Superchargers into the navigation, which is really frustrating. So when you navigate to a place, it does not even think about Tesla Superchargers. You can tell it to navigate to a Tesla Supercharger, it doesn't know what you're talking about. It doesn't even want to think about it as a point of interest on the map. It's just I don't even want to think about it. So when we did road trip this car, depending on where we're going, sometimes I will have to manually put in Superchargers. And that's a pain because it should just do it automatically. It should know to have that. It should just do it automatically when you put in navigation, hey, I want to go here. And it should list out all the chargers, and you should be able to select Superchargers. And just that experience has not been great. Now, I know Ford has recently given access to Android Auto, and was it Apple CarPlay too, where you can use your Android Auto to navigate, and it will actually do Tesla Superchargers as well. But that just doesn't make any sense to me. I have the built-in navigation, I have the built-in software to this vehicle. I should be able to utilize that for navigating even with Tesla Superchargers. If your car supports Tesla Superchargers, your navigation should support Tesla Superchargers. period. I don't understand why I have to go with a third party or use my phone's Android Auto in order for me to plan a road trip here. I should be done from the car. The cool thing about the Android Auto integration is that it does actually incorporate your state of charge and some other factors as well. So it does see, you know, what your battery is at, what you're going to get there with. It does calculate all that stuff out. I think that's very cool. But I just feel like that's Ford pulling back and saying, you know, we're not going to support our own software anymore. We're going to just rely on a third party to do that. And I think it's fine until it's no longer fine, and then Google drops the ball, and then it affects every Ford customer. Then it becomes a major problem for Ford. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. The other thing is too is now it's a subscription if you want the premium maps thing. So we had 3 years of the premium service, and now that's gone. I haven't paid for it yet. I may or may not, depending. So we don't have the traffic or whatever, the real-time stuff. We'll see how it is without it when we road trip the car, but honestly, I'm not really too worried about that. Though this car has saved us a couple times on road trips with traffic. It has been good for that. So, you know, it could be worth the cost of a few bucks a month to do that service. Something else that I wanted to talk about as far as software is Blue Cruise hands-free. So Blue Cruise hands-free is a really good system. When I first bought the car, Mr. Softy is right down the street right now. I don't know if they could hear that in the microphone, but all I hear is the Mr. Softy thing in the background. So the other thing would be Blue Cruise hands-free. So when we bought the car 3 years ago, we got Blue Cruise hands-free 1.0. So that Blue Cruise hands-free 1.0 had come out late because some of the original Mach-E owners didn't get it. When I got my car, I just so happened to have hands-free, which was great. I guess I timed it just right. And I got 3 years of it, 3 years of hands-free, which was fantastic. And so I had done a video about my experience doing hands-free 1.0 on a 60-mile loop around where we live. And my plan was we're going to do 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, so on and so forth when they got released. Well, in 3 years of owning this car, we did not get 1.1. We did not get 1.2. And we got 1.3 about 1 month, maybe a little bit less than 1 month before my 3-year trial was up. And the car was at the dealership. So we dropped off the car. About 2 days later, we got the update for 1.3, and then the car was at the dealership for another 30-something days. And so I almost completely missed out on getting 1.3 in this car, except for some reason I just randomly got it a 12-month subscription for free from Ford through their through my account. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I just got another 12 months for free. So I am now still experiencing Blue Cruise 1.3 on this car. But I think the frustrating part was the fact that we didn't get 1.1, we didn't get 1.2. I was promised to get an early access version of, I think it was 1.2 a year ago, and then that just fell through the cracks and they said, no, we're not doing it now, which was frustrating. So we didn't even get it, being part of the early access program on this car, we didn't even get early access to Blue Cruise 1.1, 1.2, or even 1.3, which makes no sense to me. So we finally got 1.3 on this car. I know the 2025 Mach-E's will have 1.5 upon their release, which is cool. And I think we'll eventually get 1.4, maybe this year, we'll see. So my frustration with that was the fact that we waited almost 3 years before we even got an update to Blue Cruise. That's just extremely frustrating in my opinion. Like they promised, oh, you're gonna get new Blue Cruise updates, you're gonna get better hands-free, you're gonna get all this extra stuff. And it was just like subpar updates for 3 years. I mean, barely anything I could think of that would be like memorable that they did. You know, they added the YouTube app and a couple other things, maybe a couple games. They changed the UI, the user interface has been changed, but that was about it. Like there really hasn't been much. They still don't even have, this is frustrating, they still don't even have how fast you're charging in the car. After all these years, 4 years of a Mach-E being an available car, when you go to a DC fast charger and you plug in the car, you do not know how fast you're charging in the car. So that means if you go to a supercharger where you don't have a screen to look at, you don't know how fast you're charging. It tells you what time you'll be at 80%, but it won't tell you how fast you're actually charging. Extremely frustrating. Extremely, extremely frustrating. You have to do it from the app on your phone. So you have to pull out your phone, open up the Ford Pass app, and then that'll tell you how fast you're charging. And that, I think that's just really silly, really, really stupid. So Ford needs to really get that update. They got to push that out. They got to get that update done. It's just, I don't know how they could get away with that for 4 years on their car without telling you how fast you're charging. I don't get it. Speaking of charging, let's go to that. AC charging, perfectly fine. 48 amp onboard charger, charges the car in like 6 hours. Like really, really fast charging if we wanted it to. DC fast charging, 2021 model year, pretty abysmal. We maybe get up to 120 kilowatts and then it just dies. And it just starts tapering down pretty hard for the rest of the charging. When we first bought this car, when you hit 80%, it would drop down into like the teens. It would be like 13, 14 kilowatts of speed. Now it's in like the 20s when you get down, when you hit like 80%. Now, of course, if you got the bigger battery in the Mach-E, then that means you would have a little bit better charging curve, a little bit better charging speed. But for the small battery, it is really quite abysmal. Even in 2021 standards, how slow this car can charge compared to like a base Model 3, for instance. You get a base Model 3 back in 21, you could pretty much plug in 200 kilowatts and you know you got a pretty decent charging curve on that car. Whereas this car is basically 115, it basically just hits that and then it just starts tapering down, and it's really kind of annoying for that. Now, when we had the 2024 Mach-E, we got to charge that car, and that car actually had a pretty decent charging curve. It had a decent peak, and the curve was okay, much better than this car. I think we saw that one about 150 kilowatts, and that was pretty good. That's where it peaked, and then it started tapering. So the newer Mach-Es with the LFP batteries seem to have a little bit better charging curve, but I don't know why they can't do that for this car. I think they can unlock a better charging curve. I just don't think they want to support any of the older cars right now. And you know, maybe that's just a Ford thing, or maybe they just don't have the people to put towards that R&D to try to figure out how they can increase the charging curve on cars that they released a couple years ago. Maybe they just don't want to deal with it. You know, that is what it is. But every time you charge this car, you pretty much go into a charger, you plug it in, let's say about 10%, you're going to be there for about 35 to 40 minutes before you're ready to get back on the road. And because it's a smaller battery, you want to try to get as deep into the pack as possible, because you want to try to go 180 to 200 miles between charges. That's really kind of the goal. That's the sweet spot. You don't want to do 130, 150 miles. You want to try to get 180, 200 miles before you charge. And with this car, you know, you can do that, but you're just sitting at the charger, you know, 45, 50 minutes sometimes. So not bad if you want to take a long lunch, but if you want to get back on the road right away, that's kind of my one pain point with that. Other than that, I think overall, if I were to give this a score 1 through 10, what do you think?
An 8.
You think an 8? I was going to say 7. So call it a 7, 7.5, whatever you want to call it. Overall, that's how much I've enjoyed owning this car. The ride is very, very smooth. It handles perfectly fine. The rear-wheel drive drivetrain on this is extremely smooth. It's extremely efficient as well. One of the things I didn't say was like this is actually probably one of the most efficient trims you could get, is the rear-wheel drive with the small battery. It's the lightest and it's the most efficient because you don't have that front motor on the car. And so that does help a lot with that efficiency, and it helps with that EPA range, you know, 230 mile EPA. And like I said, you can definitely do 230 miles if you're 100% to 0%. I'm really enthusiastic about how Ford does their EPA ranges, numbers. And I hope they continue to kind of do that, because I know the new Mach-E is like 250 mile EPA range for the rear-wheel drive, and I hope that thing does like 260, even 270. That would be really, really cool to see, especially with the heat pump. So in the wintertime, it'll be even more efficient than what this is, because this just uses your typical PTC heater. And so even in the wintertime, this car is relatively efficient, even with that PTC heater. So overall, it's just, you know, it was a very well done car in 2021 for Ford's first real EV. I say real EV because their previous ones were really just compliance cars. Overall, the car has been really good. I'm really happy with it. It might be time to move on soon, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. My wife's over here now. No, don't get rid of my car. But we'll see. We'll see a Rivian R2 maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to my wife for her input on her everyday driver. The 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E has been a fantastic car to own, fantastic car to drive and road trip. There is a lot of caveats to everything I just said though, because there are a lot of improvements that could be made, and let's hope that Ford does that in the 2025 refresh, which we should be seeing probably later this year. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I know it was a long one. I know it was me just talking a lot. Apologize, but that's how most of my videos are, so most of you are used to it by now. But thanks again for watching. Make sure you like the video below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And we'll see you on the next one. And remember, welcome to the future, and welcome to Tech Motoring. And we'll see you soon.